Rite of Passage, the podcast with Giabra Martin.
So, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the episode. We are here with Shannon Morse, and that's Morse is in Morse code.
Yes.
Yeah, we were talking about ahead of time. So, you are distantly related to Morse
Samuel
himself.
FBJ Morse. Yeah.
That is pretty cool. That's very cool. I would have used the name too, for sure, in my writing. Absolutely. So, how are you today?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Very well, very well. I appreciate you coming on. I know it's kind of doing this like during the week. I'm glad we were able to put this together. So,
Yeah,
yeah. And I'm sorry, you told me ahead of this, so you had a little car trouble, car battery trouble, and
I did. Well, it started last night because I was coaching at an indoor track meet. So I was there for about 14 hours yesterday. And
wow.
so it was a big track meet.
Okay.
Um, but Richard Sherman was there. And so my husband was jumping up and down with joy because we're a huge Seahawks fan over here in Washington State.
Awesome.
So when we came out, our car battery was dead. So 10:30 at night, trying to get home, we had to jump our car.
Oof.
And then this morning it started snowing and I had to figure
Just
out how
one
to
of
take
those.
three kids to school. So
Oh, just one of those days, huh?
it was. And I totally forgot about this meeting until you sent me a message. I was like, oh my God.
You're like, it comes up fast too. I mean, we planned this a couple weeks ago, and then I was like, oh wait,
I know.
that's today. I'm like, God, like the days are getting away from me, and it's already December, and I'm astonished.
I know. I
Yeah.
have a and I when you messaged me, I had an
Mm.
alert on my phone that I have a book signing this Saturday. And I was like, I need to get my car fixed.
Like, yeah, I got to make some moves on this for sure. Hey, so how do you set up the book signings? I've actually personally never done that, but I've been curious. So, like, how does that go?
Um, a lot of begging.
Okay, okay.
Now, so you go into a bookstore,
Mm.
especially a bookstore that kind of has your vibe. So you don't
Okay.
want to go into like a used bookstore if they don't want any new books in there. So you got to figure out the ones that will carry you, that will vibe with their customers. So because I'm a contemporary romance author, and that's pretty a hot topic right now, I just go to Barnes and Noble, local indie stores, and just ask if they'd be interested. I've had one turn me down quite rudely.
Mm, okay.
So it hurt my heart, it hurt my soul. It
Of
really
course.
made me question, like, am I really doing the right thing? But then
Right.
it's the readers that I connect with on TikTok, on Instagram that beg me to make a second book
Yeah.
for, you know, just stuff that I've written. So that really lifts my spirits up and make me want to continue to keep asking, to keep seeing if people want my book, to do, giveaways and just share my book. That's all.
Right. Like for any readers watching, I mean, excuse me, it's hard to explain. Like there are a lot of days where we feel crazy for thinking that this dream could work. Like
Yeah.
I mean, it's preposterous. You're going to create a story out of thin air that didn't exist before, and then people are just going to read it and they're going to actually pay you to do that, and you're going to like do this for work. And it's like
Yeah.
something we love so much while we're doing it. Like doesn't feel like, oh, I should be paid for this because like I'm having such a good time just writing. It's a wild life being a writer, but the TikTok people, like that community, as well as like book reviews, every good like or sorry, book awards, and then every good review on like Amazon or something. All of those, I mean, those like propel us forward. So I can't, I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
for any readers listening, I cannot tell you how much it means to us. Like even just you watching the show, hitting the like button, huge for like, okay, we're doing the right thing, we're on the right path, we should keep going. Like this is valuable to whoever's following this.
Right. And like every review on Amazon and Goodreads is like a little nugget that helps our book be seen.
Hmm.
And they don't people don't understand that like all my friends, because I coach cross country and track. Right now I'm indoor track. My
Okay.
parents of the kids that I coach, I'll tell them, I'm like, hey, leave a review. They're like, oh yeah, I usually do that, but they never do. But I'm thinking, I've got 20 people who read my book.
Right.
That's 20 reviews that could help me boost my, not sales, but like recognition a little bit. So I'm like, please leave a review. Just push a star, just a
Just
couple
anything. It's
stars.
so easy. Like you just takes 30 seconds, but it does. I mean, it's so essential to the visibility, right? Because like all of these services, like Amazon, for example, at the end of the day, all they want to do is like put products in front of you that you will buy. And the
Right.
only way they can verify that is like looking at the reviews, looking at the way people are, perceiving this product, how many people click it and buy it versus don't. So every review improves our visibility and makes our book, because there's a million books published every single year. And the question for every author is, how do you stand out in a crowd of 1 million every year? And it's
Yeah.
not an easy thing to do by any means.
Right.
Yeah.
No, because I've even submitted my book to a lot of agencies, a lot of
Right.
publishers, and after 63 rejections, you're just like,
Yeah, you're like, what? And like you need those days that like reaffirm that, like, hey, I am supposed to be here. I am good at this. What I'm doing is valuable. So, like,
right.
every good review does that. But honestly, I mean, I had a publisher email me a week ago, like, oh, sorry, this book, The Mighty Esox, is not a right fit. And I was like, I sent you that 2 years ago. Like, I have so far moved on. I was like, what are we even talking about? And I was like, wait a second. I don't, I mean, it's an interesting world for sure. But anyway, I want to go back to the Barnes and Noble thing because I have heard that they do have each store has its own purchasing manager, and like if you can get in front of this person, they have the option to bring in your book, assuming that it's like on Ingram or it's available for distribution, kind of thing.
Right. So they do two things. So I always talk to the manager, and
Mm.
the manager, they're usually very kind, and they usually, especially now that they're not in the red anymore, Barnes and Noble, because of TikTok, has got
Bounce
really
back.
popular. So
Yeah.
that people are going back there. So now they're able to help out more local authors and indie authors. They really like the old local authors because they really want them to come in and do book signings.
Right.
So they will purchase your books through Ingram Spark.
Hmm.
They do have a requirement to have for us as authors put no refund, and then you have to do no, like return and destroy is what you have to put when you
Okay.
upload to Ingram. And then you usually do like a 40%, something like that.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
something that on our end we know about, readers have no idea what we're talking about.
Right.
It's a risk for us because they can return the book, and if they return, we get charged for it. So it is a risk, but I think the risk is worth it because then you're able to get your book out to all the people that go into Barnes and Noble who
Right.
are just looking at books, and then they get to speak to an author. I had a dad and a daughter come in from Missoula, Montana, and they came into Spokane, Washington, which is like a 3.5 hour drive. And he's,
I'm actually pretty familiar, honestly. I used to have
oh, okay.
family in Bainbridge Island and Paulsbo, and then they moved to Brewster, right in the middle of the state.
Yeah.
So I've flown into Spokane, I've flown into Seattle. We spent time at Rainier over by Tacoma. So
Okay.
I've actually, that's one of the states I know very well, strangely.
Okay.
But
Yeah. So
lovely
yeah, we're
area.
at Geiger Airport. And
Yeah,
so
yeah,
we he's like, this is an opportunity. He's telling his daughters, like, this is an opportunity to speak to an author instead of just looking at a book.
right,
So,
right.
so they actually asked me a lot of questions, and I wasn't their typical genre,
Mhm.
but they ended up buying my book. And then she contacted me through Instagram later on that week
No
and
kidding.
said she loved my first book. And my first book at the time, it was the Broken
The
Lux.
broken luck.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So I was happy because then she since purchased my other book, Fairy Tale in a Big City.
nice.
So it was kind of
No,
fun.
that's outstanding. That sounds like a ton of fun. I mean, that sounds like kind of like when you dream about writing and like all the things it could be. Like one of these things is like signing books and then you connect with someone and then like your work speaks to them and they reach out and like I don't know, that is a worthy endeavor for sure. It's
Yeah. And I'm not shy. Well, I can be, but I like to talk when people come up to me and I'm like, "Hey," but then I don't want to let them go because I'm a stay-at-home mom, so when
yeah.
everyone's gone for the day, I'm like, "People, I
Like
need to talk
let's
to
connect.
people."
I know honestly, I'll go to Starbucks just to like get out of the house. Like I have two businesses I run out of the house. And like some days you're like, I just need to go like see other human beings.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
Interaction.
that's
I know.
that is very, very cool, honestly. I love that. I had another question for you and I just lost it, but this is all like very interesting to me. And like, yeah, I don't think it's going to come back to me. I do want to talk about broken luck. I
Okay.
was reading the description just before you came on.
Yes.
And I love, first of all, your description is amazing.
Thank
And
you.
for the readers, I will tell you on behalf of a lot of authors, writing our own descriptions is one of the hardest things we do somehow. Like writing an entire book and then try to define it in two paragraphs. Like we are very bad at it. Um, but yours is very clear. It's very good. And I'm kind of almost wondering if like, like you understand the moral of your story very well. So I'm almost wondering if you started with the moral and then filled in the story, or if the moral just kind of intuitively came through once you finished writing that you're like, oh, I'm kind of wondering how this book came about.
I never have a full plan when I write a book.
Okay.
And this one actually came about because it was a dream that wouldn't go away during COVID.
Mm,
And I'm just like, oh my God, how do I get this out of my head?
no kidding.
And so finally I just started writing it and I wrote it within 6 months or so because
Yeah.
I'm home with the kids. They're driving me nuts. So I just escaped and did that. But it just
I
kind of
want to dig into that a little bit. So I also have a book that came from a dream. And I will say, in terms of actually writing that book, it flowed a lot easier than other ones. Like something about like where it like intuitively comes from. I mean, it kind of just appears to you and you're like, I gotta like, and it's interesting that your dream was recurring and you're like, it's not gonna go away until I
yeah.
actualize it into like a real book here.
Yeah, it was, gosh, it was like just a bad record playing in my head.
It's like screaming at you, like, please write me. And you're
I
like,
know, I know. It's like, oh, this is so annoying. So,
"Mm,
but that's two books that I've written out of the dream because the second book, The Fairy Tale in a Big City, this guy right here,
yeah, yeah.
um, I wrote this 20 years ago.
No
Um,
kidding.
and so I just wrote it. That's all I did. I didn't do anything about it. It wasn't until I wrote Broken Luck and I sent an email to my girlfriend in Dover, Delaware, because I was in North Chicago at the time, because we're
Nice.
we're active duty military, so we travel all
Okay, so
over.
you're in a Great Lakes Naval Base.
Yes, we were. My husband was
I
stationed there.
Yeah, I grew up in Chicago. Now I live in Nashville. So this is interesting. We, kind of all over the place. And
Yeah,
tell me you have a Nashville connection. We're gonna be like, all right, this is weird, and I might be related to the Morse family or something. Like
yeah. Or
common
we
thread.
crossed paths.
There's somewhere along the way, like we both got a Starbucks at the same Barnes and Noble or something.
Yeah.
Wait, so okay, so your second story you wrote 20 years ago and didn't publish?
Nope.
How
Nope.
did you blend it to become the sequel to a book you wrote later?
So what I did was publish the first one,
Yeah.
and I was just sitting there thinking, I have another book. Actually, I have a couple that I wrote, and I thought maybe I'll just kind of like blend it together. And so I rewrote it, and I, deleted chapters,
Changed all
added
the names.
characters.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah. And so that's how. And it's kind of funny because the little boy that's in the story
Mhm.
um, was my son
Okay.
because a lot of the things that he would do was, love Thomas the Train. He would
Yeah,
sing
yeah.
Bob the Builder. Some of the words that he would say were what he was saying. So a lot of that is just it made it easier to write because I didn't have to think of what would a 2-year-old say.
Right, getting the head of a 2-year-old. Like, I've got one I
Yeah.
can observe and
Yeah.
keep a
But
note.
now he's like, what does he say? Like yacht and, and no bet. And I'm like, speak
Honestly,
English.
the next I feel like I'm getting old. Like I'm only 33, but I swear the kids are like not speaking English. I mean,
They're
like the
not.
phrases they use, I'm like, where are you getting these?
I'm
I can't
constantly
follow.
I'm constantly on Urban Dictionary with my girlfriend Carla, who I sort of wrote, she's in the books, so
Okay.
she is my best friend.
Yeah.
And I people ask me if I'm Sammy from Broken Luck. I'm not, but she's my best friend in the anyway.
Okay.
I'm
I
like,
suppose.
Carla, what does this mean?
Like I don't know what he's saying to me right here. God, yeah, that is
She's like, I
so
don't know.
it is so
Skibbity,
insane.
skibbity toilet. Lord have mercy.
Yeah, some of them are ridiculous. Some of them I kind of like. Some of them are ridiculous. But,
Yeah.
every
He
generation.
calls me boomer constantly. I'm like, dude,
No, you're
I'm
like,
not a boomer. My dad is.
right. Be
That's
like, listen, look at a timeline. Look up when these generations were. Check my birthday.
yes.
They are, yeah. That is, we could get into a whole thing about the next generation. And I feel like I'm like an old man yelling at the clouds. I'm like, But I don't know. I was like, maybe they are very, very strange and speaking a crazy language, or maybe I'm just getting old and I can't tell.
I
Yeah.
definitely am. I'm
I
looking at him like you're an idiot.
Someone's got to set him straight. Uh,
Yes.
I actually remembered the question I was going to ask you a minute ago.
Okay.
So you were saying that you love talking about your books. And what I want to say to any authors watching this is you have to love talking about your books.
You have
Like
to love your story.
you have to love your story. You have to find it so interesting. You have to want to share it with everyone. Otherwise, no one is going to be more interested in your book than you are. So, like, if you aren't interested in your book, so any chance you get to talk about it, embrace it. And you just tell people, I am a writer. This is what I wrote. I love it. I'm enthusiastic. It came from a dream. I wrote
You're
it in 6 months.
proud.
You be proud of what you did. You made something out of thin air. And that is an extraordinary and strange thing to do. And very few people, I think Dr. Sarah Monday said, I think it's 1 in 8,000 people every year write a book. So, like, imagine if you were the 1 in 8,000 to do anything at all, anything else, right? I mean, that's like, 99.9. I mean, who knows, right? Like, I could get a calculator, but you've already done something extraordinary just writing a book. So be proud of that and embrace that. So that wasn't
Right.
as much a question as much as you made me think of this. And I completely agree with you. And I've been meaning to say that. Like, authors, talk about your books.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the thing that's it's kind of like a double-edged sword is you're really, really proud, but you're also really vulnerable
Right. That's the
because when
thing.
you get that 1 star review, like I've had a one star review and a DNF, and I'm just like,
Yeah. No. And that's
but
another
I
thing.
understand it's not for everyone.
Authors, you cannot be everyone's cup of tea. And if you are everyone's cup of tea, then your book is not real enough. It is not challenging enough. It is not a representation of real life, right? There's no way to make everyone happy. And
Right.
some people are just having a bad day. And I don't know. I found a
Food
lot of the
readers.
bad reviews I read on books seem like they're a personal thing to whoever left the review, more than a reflection on the writer, oftentimes.
Sometimes I go and I look at that person particularly
Right.
and then I look at their reviews and I'm like, there's a connection. Like there's a lot of bad reviews. So
Right.
then I like discount, like, I'm like, this isn't valid.
Yeah, no, some of them, and I mean, you see it on restaurants too. Like people like 1 star, they gave me
Oh
Coke
my
instead of
gosh.
Pepsi. I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm sure this is a terrible restaurant because you know what I mean. So anyway,
Yeah.
but authors, you got to have thick skin too, like, because it's tough. There's going to be rejection. There's going to be bad days. There's going to be bad reviews. There's going to be days when you check your book sales and there's nothing there, and you're going to be like, oh, I should really go get a real job. And
I know.
but there's also very, very good days too. And honestly, if we'll never know the impact we have, right? So, like, your book might have a profound impact on someone who found it exactly when they needed to. And you'll never know, like, you might have, especially with like broken love, right? I mean, some lady and family might be reading this book and your book is very parallel to their real lives.
I've had people tell me that actually.
No, no kidding. Tell me a little bit more about that because I think that is what this is all about, honestly.
I had a lady message me and she told me that because this book is about a someone who's had a really terrible pregnancy and they said it reflected everything about their pregnancy. She said she goes, I was so sick of reading books that had pregnancy tropes and that they were all like, sunshine and butterflies
Everything's
and
beautiful and
right. And I didn't have that disorder where you lose weight, you vomit, you need to get IVs and everything.
Mhm.
I didn't have that, but I knew friends who did, but
Okay.
I didn't like being pregnant. I hated being pregnant.
Okay.
And I didn't like people that would come up to you and touch you and I'm just like, get your hands off me.
That was always weird. Be like, hey, just because I'm pregnant does not mean I have different boundaries. Yeah.
Right. I bought the biggest tote bag possible and I used to cover myself. But I was always very, very tiny, so you couldn't tell I was pregnant. Like I looked 6 months pregnant and I was 9 months. So
Yeah.
I was blessed with that. But Lord, don't touch a lady's belly.
No, for sure. My wife and I, we have he's about to be 1 in less than a month here. So, like, we were going through that too. And luckily, most of the people trying to touch her belly were like cute little old ladies, which is definitely better than like, grown men. But it's still like, hey, quit, stop touching my wife. And yeah, she didn't like that part very much. But people, I don't know,
Yeah.
they love kids on the way and they're very enthusiastic. And
Oh yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
it
So
comes from a good place, I think.
right. So
Yeah.
I had people say that, look, I was so sick during my pregnancy.
Mm.
I felt her feels. I knew what she was going through because I was lying in the bathroom floor vomiting for hours on end. Like my
Right.
husband found me sick. She goes, this was exactly what it felt like. And she's like, how did you know? I'm like, I kind of, this is a story. I just wrote it.
Right. Right. But it actually connected in real life.
Right.
Yeah.
And so with flour, sugar, and a Tiffany ring, there's it's a fusion of my grandparents' story
Mm.
from World War II, and it's a
Right.
contemporary story
Okay.
that's fused together. Um, and this lady had wrote me and she said, hey, it was hard for me to read your book because I am a victim of domestic violence. And she said, a lot of the things that you wrote about
Hmm.
was indicative to my life with that, partner at the time.
Right. Right.
And, but she said, I loved your story so much, I could not stop reading it. And I was like,
That's
okay, like I didn't realize that, there could be people with a history or PTSD of domestic violence reading my book. Like that didn't even occur to me.
and maybe it's for the best that you don't, right? Because like I don't know, we might like hamstring our own art thinking about who's going to read it and what other people have been through. But the truth is those things that are hardest for people to look at are probably exactly what they need to look at to like truly move forward. So it's interesting, like maybe someone who's been through that, if they're not doing, if they're not processing it the way that they'd like to, or like getting over it, like maybe in reading your book, they can like safely open that back up and really put it in the past.
Yeah. Well, she's the one who messaged me and begged me to make book two.
Okay,
So,
so that's a good sign. They're like, look,
yeah.
so okay, so that was your third book then, and that's going to become now a series, or are you going to write that other book?
I do have a book two in the works, but it's only in my head. Like I
Okay.
kind of have an idea, but it's not really formulated. But I'm trying to finish. So I have a lot of books that are already done,
Okay.
but they haven't been edited for their final time. I haven't reread them.
Right.
So I have like a series of books that are going to come out. So the next one that comes out will be Stop, Drop, and Run, and that's the third book in the Broken Luck series.
Okay.
And because I'm a cross country coach, this one is about the character Adam, who's in all of the books here that's already, but then he comes across a cross country star, and it's my experience coaching, so I was able to like work in that information
Yeah.
into the book.
Draw on real life to
Yeah,
inspire it or get the details accurate and
yeah.
yeah. Well, that's pretty
Because
cool. So
everyone writes about hockey, but they don't write about cross country.
hockey's hot right now. There's this one cover. I don't even remember the name of the book. I just know everyone's reading it, but I picture it's like a cartoon and the guy's got the hockey stick behind his neck, and I've been seeing that cover everywhere. And I was like,
Yeah.
whatever is in this book, I mean, people are loving it, recommending it, pushing it, and I'm like, I don't know, maybe I should write about hockey. I gotta stop talking philosophy and write about hockey just for one.
Yeah. So I'm writing a football one right now, and it's kind
Okay.
of funny because my husband and we didn't really put two and two together until just recently, but he
Mhm.
was a football player at Eastern Washington University, which are in my books, and his team won the Big Sky Championship. And so like I didn't realize that I was dating like a trope.
Right, right. You're like, oh yeah, exactly from this. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, it's just Nick.
You're like, oh, that's kind of cool. You're like, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, we ended up getting married and we had three kids and we woke up yesterday or last night with a dead battery in the car.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. You circle back, maybe put them in a book. And you're like, you know what? We can
Yeah.
talk about real life here. Yeah. Disguise it as a fiction. So let me ask, it sounds like you kind of plan your book launches instead of like you've got them mapped out like release dates and you've
Yeah.
got is that all part of just the marketing plan that like, okay, this one's going to come out, we're going to market and then we're just going to move down the list and you have a system?
So it keeps me on track. So I know that Flower Sugar and a Tiffany Ring came out in December, and then I'm going to start marketing for Stop, Drop, and Run in January, hot and heavy, and
Mhm.
then I'll release my ARCs probably in March, so
Okay.
I can have my release date maybe April. I don't know. My release
Sometime in the
date May
spring.
1st.
Yeah.
And then I plan to have the fourth book in the series come out in the well, I don't know when I'm going to do that because I have a romance horror that I really want to release on Halloween.
Just get the timing right. Be like, hey, listen, this is
Yeah,
perfect for Halloween specifically.
it is. It's really dark. It's really different, but it was a dare, so my sister dared me to write it. So
Okay. Okay. You got it done. That's pretty interesting. So all of these right now are like in the editing phase. Like, okay, you've gone through a couple drafts and now other people are looking at them and then you're gonna get them back, read them again, final
yeah,
touches.
so Stop, Drop, and Run is done. My Alpha Rita just sent me back her thoughts. There was because I deleted a chapter and kind of like worked it in. She
Mhm.
caught a mistake, so I need to go fix it before I send it to the lady who formats for me.
Okay.
Um, and then so that one's done. I need to go back and reread and edit my horror romance.
Mm.
And so that's going to happen probably in January, so I can get it ready for release in October and have my arcs by September.
Okay.
And then I think the following spring, May or maybe December, I'll release the
Mm.
fourth book of the Broken Luck series, which is She Loves Me Not, which is a dueling florist romance.
Okay.
Yeah.
So like that way, like competing flower shops, but they're
Yeah.
like we're in love, but we're also competitors and
Right. They're like buildings right next door to each other, like someone who's taken over a florist shop that's been there in Spokane for like 40 years that she's
okay.
taken over. So it's a name brand in that area. And
Right.
then this like Netflix star slash, florist for the movies, he just pops in and just decides to open it, doesn't care about the name
Legacy.
brand.
Like I got money and this is what I want to do and I'm all enthusiasm and
Yeah.
yeah, okay. That
So
definitely interesting, definitely unique for sure. One of a kind story. So I'm getting the impression as you're talking, are you a person who uses a lot of lists and you're very organized and you sound very organized?
maybe in my head, maybe not. No, my head's kind of crazy. You don't want to step in there.
Well, it sounds like you have like a very structured approach to how you do.
I I I guess for timeline's sake, I do,
Mhm.
but with regards to writing, it's a chaotic mess upstairs. So,
Right. Okay. I mean, just
but
pure
I
art.
do.
Like, spew.
Yeah, but I do like you might have this too when you're writing your stories. I do have like a background sheet, so I have dual screens on. So I'll have the background on one screen and then I'll be writing on another. So
Nice.
I'll look back and I'll say, "Oh no, no, that's the name," or "This is where they met." And then I have like a description of each one of the characters, so I know, um, where they came from, where they went to school. Because when I'm writing the football romance one right now, it's
Yeah.
gosh, what's it called? First Down and Incomplete is the name. I
Love it.
have the that's my husband, he named
It's
it.
good. It's good. Yeah. It's good.
I have a character, she's from the South, and so I have to write my Southern sayings on
Yes.
there on there because I could go back like she's madder than a wet hen. And I'm
Yeah, and
like,
you're like, I think that's an expression. You're like,
yeah, like let me Google this.
like, I mean, do they actually say that? You're like, yeah.
Well, I learned from it's unedited book girly. She's on
Mm.
TikTok and Instagram. We've become friends, and she actually drove up from Alabama to Kentucky to see me in
No
a
kidding.
book signing I had.
Okay.
So she told me that there is a popular drink down south where they take cold Coca-Cola
Okay.
and roasted peanuts, and they pop the roasted peanuts in the Coca-Cola, and they just drink it. And like a peanut will come in their mouth, and it's like a nice little treat. And
You're
I'm
like,
like,
oh, good. You're like,
that is disgusting.
like, I'm not gonna knock it before I try it, but yeah, that is
I know.
a little different. I'm in Nashville, and that's maybe not quite far enough south Like we have boiled peanuts and we have Coca-Cola,
See,
but
we
I
don't even have that in Washington.
no, but y'all have great coffee and you have the coffee carts that are like in the parking lots and like the little
Huts,
roaster trailers.
coffee huts.
Coffee huts, I apologize. The coffee huts.
Yes.
I love a good coffee hut. And they make those, they get up at 4, they
Yes.
make those scones. That is wonderful.
Yes. You have to be careful though,
Mm.
because Washington passed a rule where now you can go to coffee huts where the girls are naked.
Oh, no kidding.
Yes, so you have to be careful which ones you go to.
And like we're starting like 5 in the morning and you're like, it is freezing out here. It's snowing. It's 5 a.m. You're like, how long have you been going for? That's an interesting way to start the day for sure.
Yes.
That sounds like Bremerton.
Yes.
Yes. That is
Capitol Hill,
oh, yeah, Capitol Hill. Yeah.
even Spokane and Idaho.
Yeah. And Idaho too now. It's like
Yes.
we're venturing.
I would say their names, but it's inappropriate of the name of it.
It's like, oh God, they're doing this. Where at? Um, so this I was gonna ask you, what was I gonna ask you a second ago? Hmm. Oh, okay, so I was looking at Broken Love before we started this. And I will say this conversation, I'm having a very, very good time. This is, I mean, you're excellent conversationist. I'm just having fun. So I like have no
Told
idea
you I
what
like
I'm
to
gonna ask
talk.
you. We both are people who like to talk about our books. A lot of authors are introverts, so it's like I gotta sometimes you gotta like pull
Cool.
the info out of them and try to vibe with them and stuff. But you and I are both very enthusiastic people. Um, so in Broken Luck, so it's basically this couple gets together, but okay, so she was going to give the baby up for adoption, and then she
Right.
needs the gentleman to sign the
Right.
paperwork. And then he's like, well, are we sure we want to do this kind of thing? And they're like, okay, maybe we attempt
He
to.
was more like, I'm not doing this, and I'm
Okay.
going to convince you that you're not going to do this, and we're going to get together.
And like, I
So
can
it's like
man
he
up, I
fell
can make this
first.
work. Yeah.
Yeah. The only issue is that he might have been dating someone else.
And I'm sure, adding a new baby with a different woman in the mix probably complicates that matter a bit.
Just a little.
I would imagine so. So, and you talk about, okay, so it ends with, in your description, leaves readers believing in love's possibilities. And that caught my attention. So it's just like this couple finding a way to like do the right thing for this child or like growing to love one another. Or is it more like the nature of love being it's more than people think it is? Like it's
It's understanding that maybe the relationship that you're with, regards to Davis,
mhm.
isn't the best relationship just because you've been with them for so long. Isn't doesn't mean that you should just stay with them. Maybe you need to, maybe you have love that to give to someone else,
Mm.
but also be respectful of that partner that you're no longer in love with.
Right. And like, after all these years or whatever, like, okay, like what is
Yeah.
the right way to do this? Yeah.
And that was hard because I I had her, I had the girlfriend, Camille, um, she she was very angry, and so I wrote her as a very angry person, and
Mm.
and in respect to what a person would do when they find out their partner is cheating on them.
Right.
Um, but then it was the coming to light of her own thinking, you know, maybe this isn't a relationship that is for me either.
That
So
yeah.
it turned out to be a blessing
Hmm.
that they were able, and then they were able to like be amicable together, and then to kind of have a relationship that was still a little tense after the breakup,
Hmm.
but the respect was still there for
Well, I
each
love
other.
that. And it's got me thinking. So I'm trying to embrace more. So like 6 months ago, I left my regular job and I'm like, okay, I have a business I started side hustle that grew and now I'm embracing the author thing as well. And like, we're going to just go all in on this. And it is a tremendous test of faith. But I've been trying to roll with this idea recently that like nothing in your life is happening to you and everything is happening for you. So like even the worst things, like in your book, let's say infidelity. And then this character is, she grows in her wisdom that it's like, okay, maybe this is happening because something needs to give that like we're not doing the right thing and like there's got to be some way that we shift out of this kind of thing.
Right. Instead of fighting, let's
Mhm.
figure out each other first.
Right.
And so that's, yes.
Well, it's
Yeah.
like,
I mean,
yeah. No, go on, go on. I'm very curious about, like kind of what was on your mind when you were writing this, what you were thinking. It has me very intrigued in a big way.
well, a lot of broken luck is it is me in there, but like what happened is not me.
Right.
But a lot of it, the feelings of the past relationships, I've been, dealt with that. I kind of put that in there. So I just maybe the way that I felt, it was more of a therapeutic way for me to get over my past as well.
Interesting.
Maybe not. I don't know. Just writing.
Well, that's
But
like something as authors we can do, right? Is like transmute whatever experiences we have, and even experiences our friends had that we could kind of vicariously understand and try to put ourselves
yeah,
in those shoes, and then put it on the paper. And that's like the beauty of our art form, right? That like
yeah. I
whatever
mean,
happens
I've
in our lives.
been accused of being the Taylor Swift of books. So
No, what do they mean by that? What does this mean? Oh,
I
the
tend to
breakups and
put a
the
lot of people's stories that they tell me, and I ask, like, can I put that in a book? They're like, oh yeah, that's cool.
yeah,
Or I'll take a person, I'm like, I'm going to put you in my book. And like, can I make you a villain? And they're like, yeah, totally. Let's go for it. I want to see what a villain
absolutely.
me looks like. I'm like,
Oh
okay.
no. Of course,
I'm
you do
like,
the Law and Order thing is like the names will be changed to protect the innocent. And
yes,
yes, of course.
yeah. My although I forgot to change Carla's name.
But those are like, you're like, hey, this is a
I
little
know.
too on the nose, right? This is me. Yeah.
Well, and then in Broken Luck, I kind of left a lot of the people's names that I went to high school with the same. And then it kind of
You're like,
bit me in the
why
butt
not?
because I started coaching this young girl
Yeah.
for cross country, and her mom and I went to high school together, but we weren't in the same circles.
Okay.
But now that I'm coaching her daughter, she's like, "Hey, I read your book." I was like, "Oh."
Like, hey, I was curious if Jim was Jim. And you're like,
She
maybe.
did. She goes, "Is Adam Adam?" I was like,
You're like,
um, thank but like I didn't know them in high school. I just saw them.
right. They're like,
I was
okay,
like,
people you were like observing, and you're like, oh, this
yeah.
is like
So
a
she's like, well,
character.
I'm still really good friends with Andy. And I was like, oh my God.
You're like, don't tell me about this book, please. Like, it just just between.
I'm like, he's got a fan. He's got a groupie online.
Oh no. That is really, really funny and small
Yeah.
world and ironic and a lot of fun. A lot of fun.
So I'm just like,
Oh, Shannon, I hate to do this to you. So, because I have the 40-minute time limit, I know we have
yes.
less than a minute left. I want to make sure any readers listening, anyone who's intrigued, where should they look for you?
I'm on TikTok. I'm on Amazon. And I have Instagram. So it's just Shannon Morse.
And it's Shannon Morse is in Morse code, Morse. She is very visible on Amazon. So if you look her up, you will find her.